For thousands of years, humans have built structures that have amazed the world, and some of these locations rank among the most dangerous places on Earth. A dam so massive, it slows the Earth's rotation by roughly 0.06 microseconds a day. A house balanced between rock formations high and rugged mountains. A walkway bolted straight into a cliff face, where every step hangs above a sheer drop. Is this the peak of engineering, or reckless ambition pushing past every safety limit? Here are some of the most breathtaking and most dangerous places on Earth. Leaning Tower of Pisa. A tower weighing thousands of tons has been slowly leaning to one side for nearly 850 years, the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. The tower stands almost 57 meters tall, but its foundation is only about 3 meters deep, resting on soft ground made of sand, clay, and silt. By the time the third level was built, the ground beneath it was already sinking unevenly, and the tower began to lean. The tilt grew over the centuries as the tower's enormous weight kept pressing into the same side. At its worst, the top was more than 5 meters out of vertical. In 1990, the tower was closed over stability concerns. Engineers installed hundreds of tons of lead as a counterweight, reinforced the foundation, and carefully removed soil from the higher side to reduce the lean bit by bit. Thanks to that work, the tower still stands today, a construction flaw that became Pisa's most famous symbol. Three Gorges Dam. If the mass of water behind this concrete wall ever broke free, the damage wouldn't stop at the structure itself. It could devastate the entire downstream stretch of China's longest river. The Three Gorges Dam spans the Yangtze River, stretching more than 2.3 kilometers long and 185 meters high. Behind it sits a reservoir holding tens of billions of cubic meters of water, putting constant pressure on the structure every day. NASA estimates the water stored in the reservoir slows the Earth's rotation by about 0.06 microseconds per day and shifts the Earth's rotational pull by roughly 2 centimeters. The dam also houses the world's largest hydroelectric power station by installed capacity, a single structure powerful enough to reshape the flow of the Yangtze and leave a small mark on the planet itself. Cabane de Bertol looks like a small building stranded on a rocky peak in the middle of the Alps. The rock beneath it is too narrow to build outward, so the structure rises upward instead. 4 levels stacked on top of each other. Almost every side opens onto empty space, and reaching the entrance means climbing a series of steel ladders bolted directly into the rock, one leading to the next, with no wide platforms below. Just cliff face and open air. Step through the door at the top of the ladder system, and you'll find a shelter that holds around 80 people, at an elevation of more than 3,300 meters. It still serves as a refuge for mountain climbers, in a place where the weather, altitude, and terrain all work against any ordinary structure. Tourlitis Lighthouse. In the middle of the Aegean Sea stands a towering rock pillar. No beach, no dock, just waves crashing against it from every direction, year-round. Top sits Tourlitis Lighthouse, one of the very few lighthouses in the world built on a rock completely separated from the mainland. The structure fits just barely on top of the rock below it, exposed to constant motion. Every strong wind and powerful wave hits the small foundation directly. There's no road here, unlike most lighthouses, so even routine maintenance depends entirely on sea conditions. The original lighthouse was built in the late 19th century and destroyed during World War II. It was rebuilt on the same site in 1994, and more than a century after it first stood, the structure still faces heavy waves and strong winds in a sea that almost never stops moving. Keeping a lighthouse standing on a small rock pillar in open water is an engineering achievement in itself. Bivacco Baffile, cliff shelter, Dolomites. A house with almost no ground beneath it, this shelter is bolted directly to a cliff in Italy's Dolomites, at an elevation of about 2,760 meters, anchored to the rock with steel bolts and heavy-duty anchors. Below it, the mountainside drops almost straight down. Inside, there's only room for a few people to spend the night. The shelter wasn't built brick by brick on the mountain. Its sections were prefabricated in the valley, then flown up and assembled directly onto the cliff. Reaching it means crossing one of the most famous protected climbing routes, a Via Ferrata in the Dolomites. Beyond that route, the only other way in is by helicopter, a tiny shelter suspended in the air, held in place by engineering alone. Durdevica Tara Bridge. Two cliffs separated by a canyon nearly 170 meters deep. Far below, the Tara River looks like a narrow ribbon of water. The Durdevica Tara Bridge spans that gap with 5 concrete arches, stretching 365 meters in total. Its largest arch alone spans 116 meters without a single support, rising straight from the canyon below. When it was completed in 1940, it was the largest concrete arch road bridge in Europe. The deck is shared by vehicles and pedestrians, with almost no extra space along the sides to stop. One glance over the railing reveals the full depth of the canyon beneath your feet. Every vehicle that crosses sends its full weight through the 5 arches below, a structure that's hung over open space for more than 8 decades. Aescher Mountain Inn. Most hotels are built where they're easy to reach. The Aescher Mountain Inn sits in almost the opposite kind of place. The building clings to a narrow ledge on the slopes of the Alpstein Range in Switzerland, with a sheer rock wall rising directly behind it and the land dropping into the valley out front. Part of the inn is supported directly by the rock itself, its roof and walls tucked beneath an overhanging section of the mountain. Step outside, and the terrain immediately turns to steep slopes and narrow, rocky ledges. There's no road here. The shortest route starts with a cable car, followed by a walk through the Wildkirchley Caves, and then a mountainside trail for another 15 to 20 minutes before reaching the inn. Even surrounded by rugged terrain, the Aescher welcomes guests for several months each year, a hotel built where most people would expect to find nothing but bare cliff. Meteora Monasteries. Massive rock pillars rise straight out of the ground, their tops barely wide enough for a handful of buildings, with nearly every side dropping away in steep cliffs. The Meteora Monastery complex spreads across towering sandstone pillars in central Greece. Some monasteries stand more than 300 meters above the base of the cliffs. Space on top is so limited that terraces, balconies, and walkways were built right along the cliff edges. Just a few steps beyond the buildings, the ground falls away into the valley below. Reaching them means climbing stairways carved directly into the mountainside, with some entrances connected by small bridges stretching from the rock face to the monastery gates. Even today, some monasteries still use cable hoists to bring up food and daily supplies in a place vehicles simply can't reach. More than 6 centuries later, these monasteries still cling to rock summits almost entirely cut off from the ground, making Meteora one of the most extraordinary architectural sites in Europe. Kakum Canopy Walkway. At the Kakum Canopy Walkway, there isn't a single concrete pillar rising from the ground. Towering ancient trees serve as the natural anchor points, with wooden suspension bridges strung between them high above the forest canopy. Located in Kakum National Park in Ghana, the walkway runs about 350 meters long, with 7 bridge spans connecting one tree to the next. Around 40 meters. Each span is just over 30 centimeters wide, barely enough room for one person to cross, made of wooden planks with protective netting and steel cables running along both sides. Every step sends vibrations through the entire structure. From the first span to the last, you stay almost entirely at treetop level. More than 20 years after opening, it remains one of the oldest canopy walkways still operating in Africa. El Caminito del Rey. El Caminito del Rey wasn't built for tourists. It was constructed in the early 20th century so workers could travel between 2 hydroelectric plants at opposite ends of the El Chorro Gorge in southern Spain. Its most famous section clings to the cliff face, about 100 meters above the river below. Some parts are barely a meter wide, with a sheer rock wall on one side and a straight drop into the canyon on the other. The walkway is held up by steel beams and bolts drilled deep into the rock. One look down is enough to feel just how far above the water you are. After decades of use, the original structure fell into serious disrepair, with large sections of concrete cracking and collapsing before it was closed. Today, a new path runs directly above the old one, but the remaining fragments of concrete still clinging to the cliff show just how dangerous the crossing once was. Dachstein Stairway to Nothingness. The Dachstein Stairway to Nothingness doesn't lead to a summit. Its 14 steel steps take you down, beyond the edge of the cliff, to a small glass platform that extends completely out from the mountainside. Beneath it, a drop of nearly 400 meters. Standing there, you can look straight through the glass to the rocky slope far below. Sitting at an elevation of about 2,700 meters in Austria's Dachstein Mountains, the structure is fully exposed to the elements. Snow and ice can cover the steel steps, and even a thin, slippery layer is enough to make every step feel tense. The platform isn't held up by columns from the valley floor. Its entire load transfers back into the cliff through steel beams and anchor points. Every year, hundreds of thousands of visitors come to stand at one of the most exposed viewpoints in the Alps. Predjama Castle. Predjama Castle wasn't built on top of a hill, it was built directly into the mouth of a massive cave. A mountain more than 120 meters high rises behind it, and a nearly vertical cliff stands in front. Only one side of the castle faces the outside world. The other 3 are enclosed entirely by the surrounding terrain. Behind its last rooms, a passage leads into a natural cave system stretching more than 14 kilometers through the mountain. For centuries, that passage was used to smuggle in food whenever the front entrance was under siege. The landscape turned the castle into a nearly unconquerable fortress, but it also meant the entire structure depended on the narrow space between the cliff and the cave entrance. Monte Rosa Hut. From a distance, Monte Rosa Hut looks more like a giant metal crystal than a mountain cabin. It sits at nearly 2,900 meters, right on the edge of Switzerland's Gorner Glacier. No roads, no power grid, no outside water supply. Every part of the structure had to be flown in by helicopter and assembled on site. Its multifaceted aluminum exterior reflects light from every direction, a design that helps capture solar energy while reducing heat loss in the icy environment. Solar panels generate most of its electricity, and water collection and wastewater treatment systems let the hut meet about 90% of its own operating needs. In a place where simply staying alive isn't easy, the building runs almost independently on the glacier for months at a time. Macau Tower Skywalk. Out here, the only thing keeping you secure isn't a railing. It's a single safety line clipped to the track system overhead. The Macau Tower Skywalk sits about 233 meters above the ground, wrapping around the outside edge of the observation deck on a walkway just 1.8 meters wide. The tower is on one side, a straight drop to the streets is on the other. The entire structure is out in the open, no glass barriers, no guardrails, letting participants stand right at the edge or lean out over the side. It's a design that turns the outer edge of the tower into a place people can actually walk, still rare even among modern high-rises. Xiaolangdi Dam. Not many dams in the world are designed to deliberately trigger a flood, but the Xiaolangdi Dam does exactly that almost every year. Built on the Yellow River, one of the most sediment-heavy rivers on Earth, the dam faces a constant problem: silt building up at the bottom of the reservoir, which gradually weakens its ability to control flooding if left alone. That's why it was built with large bottom outlet gates, positioned deep below the waterline, that flush sediment straight downstream. When the system activates, multiple gates open at once, releasing high-pressure water at a flow rate of thousands of cubic meters per second. The muddy surge carries massive amounts of sediment, throwing up huge plumes of water and powerful whirlpools downstream. In a single operation, tens to hundreds of millions of tons of sediment can be sent back into the river. Since 2002, these engineered floods have been a regular part of how Xiaolangdi Dam operates, a dam that both stores water and deliberately unleashes it, all to keep an entire river flowing. Sigiriya Fortress. Every brick, every block of stone, every drop of water that once supported life atop Sigiriya had to be carried nearly 180 meters up a rock that rises almost completely apart from the plains of Sri Lanka. In the 5th century, its summit became home to a royal palace, fortress walls, water gardens, and living quarters, enough space for an entire complex, even though nearly every side ends in sheer cliffs. The only way up begins with stone steps that connect to steel stairways bolted directly to the rock face. Some sections pass between massive boulders, others hang suspended against the cliff. The remains of the palace foundations and the ancient water reservoir system are still visible at the top, making Sigiriya one of the boldest engineering achievements of the ancient world. Charles Kuonen Suspension Bridge. This bridge is narrower than the shoulder width of many adults, yet it stretches nearly half a kilometer across the Alps. The Charles Kuonen Suspension Bridge runs 494 meters long, with a walkway just 65 centimeters wide, crossing the Grabengufer ravine without a single support column in the middle. Below is an 85-meter drop. The steel grate deck lets you see straight down to the bottom of the ravine with every step. Steel cables and a vibration damping system keep the bridge stable, even in alpine winds of up to 180 kilometers per hour. The previous bridge here was destroyed by rockfall, so the new one was built higher up and completed in just about 10 weeks. Nearly half a kilometer long, only 65 centimeters wide, yet strong enough to carry hundreds of people across one of Switzerland's most rugged landscapes. Glacier Skywalk. The Glacier Skywalk extends beyond the edge of a cliff on a curved steel platform, with the Sunwapta Valley about 280 meters below. It sits in Canada's Jasper National Park. Shaped like a horseshoe, the observation deck projects about 35 meters out from the mountainside, supported entirely by steel beams and anchor points drilled deep into the rock. Every ounce of load transfers back into the cliff, allowing the platform to extend outward with no support columns underneath. The floor is high-strength laminated glass. Directly beneath your feet, the valley floor, with just a single pane separating you from a drop of hundreds of meters. Vøringfossen Bridge. In a canyon in western Norway, a stepped bridge crosses the Vøringfossen waterfall on 99 connected steel steps. The bridge runs about 47 meters long, with its two ends offset by nearly 16 meters, following the slope of the landscape to connect two viewpoints on opposite sides of the canyon. Directly below, the waterfall plunges about 182 meters into the Mobadalen Valley. Built entirely from steel and anchored deep into the bedrock, the structure stays stable on the steep terrain, even while constantly exposed to mist from the falls. Completed in 2020, the bridge turned a gap once divided by the waterfall into a pedestrian crossing, and one of the most unusual bridge designs in Europe. Tokyo Bay Aqua Line. In the middle of Tokyo Bay, the road suddenly disappears beneath the sea. Cars keep moving for several kilometers without seeing the sky. The Tokyo Bay Aqua Line connects the cities of Kawasaki and Kisarazu across about 15.1 kilometers, with roughly 9.6 kilometers running through an underwater tunnel beneath the bay, and the rest crossing a bridge over the sea, one of the longest combined tunnel and bridge systems in the world. The tunnel was built deep beneath the seabed to stay clear of one of Japan's busiest shipping routes, with a continuous ventilation system, water pumps, and emergency escape systems always on standby. At the center of the route sits Umihotaru, an artificial island that serves as a rest stop and the transition point between tunnel and bridge, a roadway where the most complex part lies entirely underwater. Montfalcone walkways. More than 500 wooden steps change direction repeatedly along a nearly vertical cliff, climbing through multiple levels above the reservoir below. This is the Montfalcone walkway system in Spain's Aragon region, with two large stairway sections attached directly to the limestone cliffs, some parts standing dozens of meters above the water, wide enough only for pedestrians. Steel beams support each wooden step, anchored deep into the rock, with cable railings running along the outer edge, built to carry weight while suspended above the canyon and reservoir below. The walkway was built to reconnect Montfalcone with the gorge after a reservoir cut off the original route between the two areas. Rather than carving a road through the mountain, Engineers moved the entire path onto the cliff face, a massive staircase that follows the rock while hanging high above the drop. Peak Walk by Tissot. Two rocky peaks at Glacier 3000 are connected by a 107-meter suspension bridge with railings only 80 centimeters apart, narrow enough that people almost have to walk single file. Peak Walk by Tissot links the viewpoint to the Sex Rouge Peak in Switzerland. The steel grate deck lets you see straight through to the mountainside below, held up by two main steel cables across fully exposed terrain that's regularly hit by strong wind, snow, and ice. Conditions are checked before the bridge opens, and it can close immediately if things turn unsafe. It's currently the only suspension bridge in the world that directly connects two mountain peaks. Before it opened in 2014, the only way to cross the gap was by cable car. The bridge turned that journey into a walk. Aiguille du Midi Skywalk. At the summit of France's Aiguille du Midi, a glass room extends beyond the edge of the observation deck. The site sits at about 3,842 meters, with the mountainside and glaciers of the Mont Blanc Massif dropping away more than 1,000 meters below. The floor, ceiling, and three side walls are entirely glass, each panel made of 3 layers, about 12 millimeters thick, held by a steel frame at the edge of the platform. It was engineered to withstand winds of up to about 220 kilometers per hour and seasonal temperature swings of around 60 degrees Celsius. The skywalk opened in 2013 after 3 years of construction, turning a gap high in the mountains into a place where people can step straight out beyond the edge of the cliff. Hochhasterwitz Castle. The road to Hochhasterwitz Castle winds around a steep rock outcrop, passing through 14 defensive gates before reaching the top. The fortress stands on a limestone outcrop about 160 meters high in Austria's Carinthia region, with the entire plain below in full view. The steep terrain leaves only one route up, and each gate, positioned in a different location, behind stone walls and tight bends, slows anyone trying to force their way through. Clearing one gate just reveals several more layers of defense ahead. Thanks to its location and design, Hochhasterwitz has never been captured by direct assault, a fortress where the road leading up became its first line of defense. Bivacco Skywalk. A curved structure of concrete and steel extends beyond the mountainside, the Bivacco Skywalk, built on the slopes of Ravna Vlasic in Croatia, at an elevation of about 1,228 meters. Shaped like a horseshoe, the observation deck extends about 11 meters beyond the cliff, with steep rock faces dropping toward the Adriatic coast below. Steel beams and anchor points drilled into the bedrock carry the entire load back into the mountainside, letting the platform project outward with no support columns in front. The glass floor and transparent railings leave almost nothing between visitors and the open air ahead. Opened in 2020, the skywalk turned the edge of the mountain into an observation deck, suspended completely beyond the cliff face, an experience that makes many people pause before taking the next step. Millau Viaduct. Sometimes the bridge piers below completely disappear, leaving only the roadway stretching across a sea of white clouds, a phenomenon that often happens at the Millau Viaduct in southern France, where fog collects along the Tarn River Valley as clouds rise. 7 massive concrete piers support the roadway, the tallest reaching 343 meters, taller than the Eiffel Tower. A cable-stayed system keeps the structure stable in the strong winds that regularly sweep through at this elevation. At certain times, drivers can see little more than the road ahead, the ground gone on both sides, nothing but clouds and sky. Xinghai Bay Bridge. Building a bridge across the sea isn't the hardest challenge. Keeping it running for decades in salt water is. That was the problem the Xinghai Bay Bridge had to solve from the drawing board onward. The crossing stretches more than 6 kilometers, connecting both sides of Xinghai Bay in Dalian, China, using several structural designs, each chosen for a specific purpose. Offshore conditions are never stable. Year-round sea winds, constant salt spray, and high humidity all accelerate corrosion, so the steel is protected with multiple coatings and the concrete engineered to keep seawater from reaching the reinforcing steel inside. Dozens of piers stand in the sea, withstanding the weight of traffic, waves, and wind day and night for decades. A bridge designed to withstand the very environment surrounding it since day one. Mala Rijeka Viaduct. Before this bridge existed, this valley was a gap the railway had almost no way to cross. The Mala Rijeka Viaduct was built on the Belgrade Bar Railway in Montenegro, running nearly 500 meters long, with the deck standing about 200 meters above the valley floor. Completed in 1973, it was the tallest railway viaduct in the world at the time. 5 massive concrete piers support it, the tallest rising more than 130 meters, with each span assembled at extraordinary height before being connected into a continuous line. Trains still cross it every day, taking less than a minute to pass over a gap that was once the greatest obstacle on the entire railway line. Sidu River Bridge. Some valleys are so deep that getting a single cable across becomes a challenge of its own. In Hubei Province, China, the rugged terrain made cranes and conventional construction methods impractical, so engineers used a rocket to fire the first guide cable across the gap, an approach that sounded more like science fiction than construction. That was the first step in building the Sidu River Bridge. Once the initial cable was in place, larger bundles were pulled across one by one, and the towers and main cable system gradually took shape, connecting the two mountainsides without a single support pier rising from the valley below, nearly 500 meters down. The bridge opened in 2009 and remains one of the highest suspension bridges in the world. Seikan Tunnel. Above lies the Tsugaru Strait, with ships constantly passing through. Below, a railway tunnel cuts through layers of rock that could crack and let seawater rush in at any moment. The Seikan Tunnel connects Japan's islands of Honshu and Hokkaido, stretching nearly 54 kilometers, with more than 23 kilometers running beneath the strait itself. Its lowest point sits about 240 meters below sea level. Construction began in 1971 and lasted nearly 2 decades. Engineers had to excavate through multiple layers of rock beneath the seabed, and constant groundwater inflow forced the drainage and reinforcement systems to be expanded repeatedly. Even after opening, strict safety standards remained. The tunnel is equipped with emergency escape routes, ventilation systems, sensors, and emergency stopping areas for a passage that runs dozens of kilometers beneath the sea. Human creativity and courage truly know no limits. We haven't just found ways to overcome nature, we've built some of our most remarkable structures right at the edge of danger. After exploring these breathtaking places, which one amazed you the most? And if you could visit just one in person, which would you choose? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next adventure.